I wasn't born into comfort, I built it, brick by trembling brick. When Marcus was born, I promised him he would never know the kind of hunger I grew up with. I worked 2 jobs, saved every coin, and built a small catering business out of my own kitchen. The neighbors laughed when I started, said I was wasting my time baking for strangers. But that business paid for Marcus's school fees, his textbooks, his first laptop. After my husband died in that factory accident, the world became heavier, colder. I remember crying over bills, while Marcus slept in the next room, too young to understand why the lights sometimes went out. I swore I'd make life kinder for him, even if it meant breaking myself in the process. Marcus was my heartbeat, my reason for waking up at dawn and staying up past midnight. He was smart, dangerously smart. By the time he turned 16, he was already talking about stocks, crypto, and financial freedom. I smiled, not really understanding half of what he said, but proud all the same. When he got accepted into college, I nearly fainted with joy. I told everyone at church that my son was going to be someone important. I didn't know that one day, that same intelligence I was so proud of would be the very thing that almost ended me. Sometimes when I look back, I wonder if love blinded me, or if motherhood did. Either way, I never saw the darkness growing in my own home. When Marcus graduated, I felt like every struggle had finally paid off. He was the first in our family to wear a graduation gown, and I couldn't stop crying during the ceremony. People probably thought I was being dramatic, but they didn't know what it took to get there, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the dreams I buried just to see his come alive. Afterward, he hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. "Mom," he whispered, "this is just the beginning. You'll never have to work again." Those words lit something in me, pride, relief, and a kind of naive hope that maybe, just maybe, things would finally be easy. For a while, they were. Marcus landed a tech job that paid more in a month than I made in a year. He bought a new car, rented an apartment uptown, and sent me money every week. He called every Sunday, just checking on my favorite woman. He'd say, and I'd laugh, pretending I didn't hear the city noise behind him, pretending I wasn't lonely in the quiet house he grew up in. Then things started to shift. He stopped calling as often. When I phoned him, it would ring twice before going to voicemail. He blamed projects and deadlines, but his voice lost that warmth I used to know. When I visited his apartment, unannounced one weekend, he looked startled, like I was an unexpected ghost from another life. The place was immaculate, almost too clean and cold. There were empty bottles on the counter, documents scattered on the floor, and a strange smell of chemicals mixed with citrus. He smiled too quickly. "You should have called first." "Mom," he said, taking my coat before I could ask anything. That day I brushed it off, told myself he was just stressed. But a mother knows when something isn't right. And something about my son, his eyes, his tone, his house, didn't feel right at all. The next few weeks, that visit wouldn't leave my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that too clean kitchen, those dropper bottles on the counter, and the way Marcus kept glancing at the clock, like he was waiting for something or someone to interrupt us. So when he called one Friday evening, voice unusually cheerful, inviting me for dinner, I hesitated. "It's been too long, Mom," he said. "I'll cook your favorite peach cobbler for dessert." He hadn't baked since he was 10. That alone should have told me something was off. Still, a mother's heart forgets warnings faster than it forgets love. I agreed. When I got there, his smile seemed forced. His hug was brief, awkward, like he was holding his breath. The house looked different this time. Too many locks on the doors. Windows covered with thick curtains even though it was just sunset. The air smelled faintly sweet, like artificial peaches, and under it something sharp, metallic. At dinner, he poured cider into 2 glasses. His hands trembled slightly, but he masked it with a joke. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. I noticed the dropper bottles again, tucked carelessly under the sink. Clear liquid, no labels. I asked about them, and he froze for a split second before laughing. "Vitamins, Mom, you know, for health." But when I took my first sip of the cider, my tongue burned slightly. It wasn't the brand I knew. It was too sweet, too bitter, medicinal. Then his phone buzzed. He excused himself, stepping out of the room to take the call. That's when I noticed his laptop open on the counter, an email on the screen, half-typed. "She trusts me. Once it's done, we can finalize the papers. The insurance payout will clear in 2 weeks." My heart stopped. Insurance. Payout. May. I froze, my mind racing. Then my phone buzzed, my neighbor checking in. That's when instinct kicked in. I said our emergency phrase, the one we joked about years ago for fun. I left the charcoal briquettes in the freezer. She didn't laugh. She hung up. 2 minutes later, I heard sirens. And Marcus, he just stared at me, expressionless, as if he'd already buried me in his mind. The sirens grew louder, slicing through the silence of that house like a scream. Marcus's eyes widened, not with guilt, but with rage. What did you do? Mom, he hissed, stepping closer. His voice was low, controlled, but something dangerous flickered beneath it. I backed away slowly, my heart thundering in my chest. You tell me, Marcus, what did you put in that drink? He froze. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The seconds dragged like hours. Then came the pounding on the door. Police, open up. Marcus ran his hand through his hair, muttering curses under his breath. You ruined everything, he spat. He turned toward the sink, grabbing the dropper bottles. You think I wanted this? You think I had a choice? The officers broke through the door before he could move another inch. The sight of their guns drawn made him drop the bottles instantly. Clear liquid splashed across the floor. One of the officers yelled, "Ma'am, step back." Another cuffed Marcus as he shouted, "It was supposed to fix everything. She made me do it." Who, Marcus? Who made you do it? I demanded, tears stinging my eyes. But he wouldn't look at me, not even as they read him his rights. I stood frozen, watching my son, the same boy I'd once held against my chest, whose fevered forehead I'd kissed through nights of worry, being dragged out of his own home in handcuffs. When the officers tested the liquid later, the truth came out: ethylene glycol antifreeze. Hidden in those bottles, sweet, bitter, deadly. Marcus's words haunted me long after the sirens faded. She made me do it. But who was she? And what had she promised him that was worth my life? The police took Marcus away that night, but I didn't sleep. I sat in my car in front of the house until dawn broke through the mist, clutching the same hands that once rocked him to sleep. My son, my own flesh and blood, had tried to poison me, and still, all I wanted was to know why. By morning, Detective Lawson called me in. His tone was calm, but his eyes carried that heavy sympathy only cops who have seen too much can wear. "Mrs. Reed, your son isn't saying much," he said, "but he keeps repeating one name, Lena. Does that mean anything to you?" The air left my lungs. Lena, the woman he'd been seeing for just over a year. The same one who showed up to family dinners, with her red lipstick and hollow compliments. She'd look at me with that smile, polite, sharp-edged, and say, "You must be so proud of him." I never liked her, but I never imagined this. Detective Lawson leaned forward. "We found transactions in Marcus's account. Large ones, transfers to an offshore account under her name. He says she told him this plan would free them both. That she had investors who'd double their money once. Well, once you were gone." My knees nearly gave out. He did it for money. For love and greed, Lawson said softly. A dangerous mix. I left the station numb. As I drove home, my mind replayed every warning I'd ignored. The late-night phone calls. The sudden expenses. His guilt when I offered to help with bills. When I got to my doorstep, an envelope waited there. No postage, just my name, inside. A photograph of Marcus and Lena, standing by a lakeside cabin. On the back, scrawled in red ink, "You took him from me once. Don't try it again." The handwriting wasn't Marcus's. It was hers. I knew that cabin. It was the same one my late husband used to take Marcus to every summer. A quiet retreat near Lake Elmsworth, surrounded by thick pine trees and silence so deep it could swallow secrets whole. The cabin had been in our family for decades, but I hadn't been there since my husband's funeral. I thought Marcus had stopped going too. Clearly, I was wrong. By noon, I was on the road. The sky was gray, heavy with storm clouds, as if warning me to turn back. But I couldn't, not when I finally had a trail. I kept thinking of that note, of Lena's perfect handwriting curling like smoke. When I arrived, the cabin looked untouched, no movement, no sound, just the hum of wind through the trees. I pushed the door open. It wasn't locked. Inside, dust hung in the air, and the scent of perfume, Lena's perfume, still lingered. Then I saw it. Pinned on the wall were dozens of photographs of me. At church, in the grocery store, watering my plants, each one labeled with dates and short notes in red ink. "She's weakening. He's ready. Soon." My stomach turned. On the table sat an open journal. The handwriting was hers again. She had written everything. Her plan to convince Marcus that I was hiding millions from him, that his inheritance was being stolen, that I never wanted him. She twisted every wound he ever had against me. I heard footsteps outside. My heart stopped. I ducked behind the old piano, just as the door creaked open. Lena stepped inside, humming softly, wearing a white coat despite the heat. She walked to the table and picked up her phone. Marcus, she said sweetly, don't worry. Mommy won't be a problem much longer. I froze. My pulse pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. That's when my phone buzzed. Loudly. She turned, her eyes locked on mine. And for the first time, I saw her smile, not polite, not hollow but predatory. The moment her eyes met mine, I knew there was no way to pretend anymore. The polite smile that used to greet me at Sunday dinners had vanished. What replaced it was pure calculation, cold, sharp and terrifyingly calm. Well, Lena said, tilting her head. Looks like curiosity finally got the best of you. My mind raced. I needed to get out. But my phone, my only lifeline, was across the room, buzzing uselessly on the floor. My legs felt frozen as she slowly moved closer, her heels clicking on the wooden floorboards. I tried to protect you from the truth, she said softly. Marcus deserved to know what you did. What I did, I whispered. You mean raising him alone, keeping a roof over his head, when your kind wouldn't lift a finger. Her expression darkened. You stole his future. That house, that money, it should have been his. Not rotting away under your name. I realized then, this wasn't just about greed. Lena believed her own lies. She had poisoned my son's mind, feeding him a story where I was the villain and she, the savior. My eyes darted toward the door. Just a few steps, I could make it. But before I could move, she raised her hand and in it, something glinted, a syringe. My body went cold. Don't make this harder than it has to be, she murmured. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a glass lamp, and threw it. It shattered beside her, and I bolted for the door. My fingers fumbled with the latch, heart pounding, when a hand yanked me back by the hair. We fell, both screaming. The syringe skidded across the floor. I kicked her off and scrambled to my feet. Lungs burning, she lunged again. But I shoved the table into her path and ran outside into the pouring rain. Branches clawed at my face as I sprinted toward my car. Behind me, Lena's voice echoed through the woods, low and venomous. You can't run from family forever. But I didn't look back, not this time. By the time I reached the car, my breath came in sharp, uneven gasps. My hands trembled as I slammed the door shut and locked it. Rain lashed the windshield in wild sheets, blurring the world outside. I could barely see the dirt road ahead. But I turned the key anyway and sped off into the night. My mind was a storm of its own, Lena's words echoing. The syringe glinting, her voice hissing through the rain. You can't run from family forever. My phone buzzed violently on the passenger seat. For a moment, I thought it might be the police. But when I looked, it was Marcus. I froze, my own son. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. Every part of me wanted to ignore it, to drive until the road disappeared. But a mother's heart doesn't work that way. With shaking fingers, I answered. Mom, his voice was cracked raw. What did you do to Lena? Tears blurred my vision. Marcus. She tried to hurt me. I found something. Under the sink, bottles, the cider. I know, he whispered. My breath hitched. What? She's not here anymore, he said, his voice trembling. She's gone. She packed and left while you were gone. I found the receipts, Mom. The fake prescriptions. The withdrawals from your account. I didn't want to believe it, but she used me. Silence filled the line. Not the kind that was peaceful, but the kind that hollowed you out. Marcus, I whispered. I'm sorry, he said, voice breaking. For not seeing it sooner. For letting her turn me against you. Through the rain, flashing blue lights appeared in my rearview mirror. The police. I slowed down, pulling over, heart pounding. When the officer approached, I rolled down the window, tears streaking down my face. She's gone, I whispered. My daughter-in-law tried to poison me. My son just confessed. Please help us. The officer nodded, radioing backup. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to relief. Raw, fragile but real. The next morning, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was terribly wrong. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the photo of us on Michael's graduation day. His smile was bright then, his arms around me, as if I was his world. How did we get here? How did we drift into this place where my own son felt like a stranger? I decided to surprise him with breakfast. Maybe, I told myself, a mother's touch could melt whatever walls he had built around himself. I packed a basket with his favorite pancakes and maple syrup, grabbed my keys, and drove to his house. When I got there, the air felt heavy, too still. Too quiet. His car was parked outside. But the curtains were drawn. I knocked softly. No answer. I tried again, louder this time. Still nothing. A chill ran through me. But I pushed the door open anyway. The moment I stepped inside, a sharp stench hit me, metallic. Mixed with something foul, I froze. The living room was dim. cluttered with empty food boxes and papers scattered everywhere. My heart thudded in my chest as I made my way toward the kitchen. The smell grew stronger. My palms were slick with sweat. "Michael," I called out, my voice trembling. No response. When I turned the corner into the kitchen, I saw something that made the world tilt beneath me. My knees buckled. The entire counter was covered in blood. Dried streaks led from the sink to the floor. A knife lay by the corner, and beside it, a phone smeared with red fingerprints. My hands shook uncontrollably as I grabbed my own phone and dialed 911. "Please," I whispered, tears blurring my vision. "Send help. I think something terrible has happened to my son." The operator's calm voice was the only thing anchoring me as I stood frozen in that kitchen. "Ma'am, stay on the line. Are you in a safe place?" Safe? I wasn't sure what that meant anymore. My son's home, once filled with laughter, the smell of roasted chicken, and his off-key singing, now reeked of fear and decay. "Yes," I stammered, clutching the phone. "But there's blood, so much blood. I don't know where my son is." Within minutes, sirens wailed in the distance. I stumbled to the door, my breath uneven. When the officers burst in, everything became a blur, their voices, their movements, their questions. One of them, a tall man with kind eyes, guided me to a chair. "Ma'am, please try to stay calm, we'll handle this." But how could I? My son was missing. The last time we spoke, he sounded detached, distracted, almost afraid. I'd ignored it, thinking he just needed space. Now guilt clawed at my chest like fire. The forensic team began their work, taking pictures, collecting samples, murmuring things I couldn't comprehend. Then an officer called out, "We've got something in the basement." My heart nearly stopped. They rushed downstairs while I waited, gripping the hem of my blouse like a lifeline. Seconds felt like hours until one of them came back up, pale-faced and tense. "Ma'am," he said softly, "we found something you need to see." I followed him down the creaky steps, every step heavier than the last. When we reached the bottom, I gasped. There were photographs pinned to the wall, dozens of them, of faces I didn't recognize. Men, women, children. And right in the center was my picture. The room spun. My legs gave out. What is this?" I whispered. The officer looked at me grimly. "Ma'am, we think your son might be involved in something much darker than you realized." I couldn't breathe. My photo stared back at me from the wall, surrounded by strangers, whose faces told silent stories of terror. My knees buckled, and I reached for the wall to steady myself. "No," I whispered. "This isn't my son, this can't be my Daniel." But the officer's expressions said everything I didn't want to hear. Detective Hayes crouched beside one of the tables. "We found these under the floorboards," he said quietly, lifting a small box filled with vials, keys and folded notes. "Looks like he was keeping trophies." The words shattered me. My son, my bright, sweet boy who used to bring home stray cats and fix broken radios, had been keeping trophies. "Why?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Why would he do this?" The detective hesitated before answering. "We think he was working with a group that targeted elderly women for insurance fraud. There are records here, forged policies, bank transfers, photos of potential victims, including you." The room went silent, except for the faint hum of the generator outside. I sank to the floor, numb, cold. Hollow, the cider, the dropper bottles. Everything made sense now. He was going to make me one of them. Later that night, as the officers packed the evidence, I sat alone in my car, staring at the house that once held every memory I cherished. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I didn't want it to end this way. "Mom, I just needed one last chance." Tears blurred my vision as I read it over and over. Somewhere deep inside, love still flickered, small, stubborn, and painful. The sirens faded, the lights dimmed, and I finally started the engine. I didn't look back. Because love doesn't cancel itself. It just buckles its seat belt and drives away from the wreckage. Thank you for watching. Till the end, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more stories.